You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Myles Teteak, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We are not getting into all the national sports media nonsense and distractions. We are sticking to real football, talking about the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season, which is coming up pretty quick, sorting through all the draft dreams and drama of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, and hit that subscribe button. We're talking to all of you. If you're listening right now, go do it. Go do it right now. It is one of the most important things you can do to help us out, help us find more Packers fans, and help them find us. So this evening, we got training camp right here on the horizon. Got the season coming around the corner faster than we can probably realize. And, excitement is easy to come by, but we got some concerns to get into. So we're going to be talking about our biggest concerns heading into the 2026 Packers season. And just kind of see here, like what might slow things up? What might derail the season here, if I may? And are these big concerns? Are they small concerns? We're gonna dive into all of them. We've got a player extension to cover. We'll talk about that a little bit, and maybe we'll talk about what we're excited about too. We don't want to be too doom and gloom here, but of course, first, let's cover some business. Our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, all them tickets. You can get them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And remember, support those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. How we doing?
Good evening, Myles. I'm doing well. We are just a little more than 2 weeks away from the start of training camp. So this quiet part of the off season is winding down, thankfully. And we almost have football to talk about.
We're so close.
It's practice. It's going to be practice, but we'll talk about it. We're going to be talking about practice pretty soon, and I look forward to it then. Seeing all this talk about lists and rankings and all this garbage that goes on at this quiet time of the off season. There's that going on, and we got a little bit of Packers. We got the contract extension that we've all been, well, not really all been waiting for, but we got a contract extension. It's not Tucker Kraft yet, but we did get McDuffie's contract extension that came out. So we got a little bit of Packers news, and we're getting close. We're getting real close to training camp.
I'll say a Packers player extension is way more enjoyable to talk about than a bunch of meaningless lists.
Yes.
Although that is what
100%.
the Twitterverse is on fire with, is all the lists.
Oh, boy.
Every list that you can imagine is out there. There's a list that agrees with you. There's a list that doesn't agree with you. If you're a Bears fan, you can find a list. If you're a Packers fan, you can find a list. Everybody's got their lists. And if you just say it with the most hateful tone, your list is the almighty meaningful list that trumps all of them. So, just keep going at it, guys, with all the listing that you're doing out there. And maybe you'll be the one that's more right than everybody else.
I guess, for whatever that's worth. But the answer to it all is that, like, none of these lists mean anything at all. It's just to fill all this quiet time in the off season. It means nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't pay attention to it. Give it no time whatsoever. It means nothing. And the people behind it just prove that they don't actually watch football or know what's going on with football, which is amazing. But just pay it no attention, because they mean nothing, and they're not worth the time or energy to get upset about.
No. Once the ball goes on the field, the list means zero.
Yeah.
We got our buddy Chris, the casual in, or Gary Bears Truther. Love that. Good name adjustment there, sir. Haters unite. Here we are. And so the list thing had me going, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, I'm just so sick of this, but it can spur some valid conversation. And I think, Bears fans aside, there's some things where you see these lists, and you're like, all right, fine. What's the thought behind the list? But we got the biggest one, I think, is Jordan Love was it number 72, I think, on
I
the
think
top
so.
100 for NFL Network, and
Yeah.
it's voted on by the players, so it must be the most
really.
valid list in all of the land.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't need it. I don't care. I don't have any feelings about it. Sure, he's number 72, whatever.
It means nothing.
Yeah. I love the Bears fans, though, and this is what got me going. These Bears fans live for the lists. They live for it.
At least this offseason they do.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
this is their Super Bowl. It's their
time to shine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because as soon as football starts being played, well, things don't go as well. It's not as easy as pulling up a list and go, look, I'm right. But I will say it is rather frustrating to see some of these lists that mention a certain quarterback in the top 10 and not Jordan Love. And it's just like, good Lord, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So, I guess it invalidates the whole thing.
Yeah. And the players list has always been worthless to me. Whether it's good for the Packers, not good for the Packers, I don't care. Like, they have Lamar Jackson as the 69th best player in the NFL. Like, do these guys watch the game? Like, first of all, you don't know how many players are voting for it, who's voting for it. Are they just voting for their teammates? Are they voting for their college teammates? Are they voting for who's in the same agency as them, who they're buddies with? Like, they voting for guys, bumping guys up at their positions because if that guy gets a higher rating, maybe he gets more money on his contract, and then it trickles down to me because I play the same position. You don't know. And honestly, like, a lot of NFL players, I think maybe like the general public might be surprised, but they don't watch a ton of football. They're not like us as fans where they like are sitting there all day on Sunday and all the prime watching the games. Like, they're here and there for some of the bigger ones or the primetime games, but they're not seeing a lot of these teams week in or week out. So it means nothing. And then the other list that came out on Monday today was the ESPN list where they have executives, scouts, coaches.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Breaking them down by players. And Jordan Love wasn't a top 10 quarterback. And like, first of all, like, you can get angry. Jared Goff's a top 10 quarterback. Like, how? Caleb Williams, like, however, Sam Darnold's in the same category as Jordan Love. Okay. Then they actually show you, like, for the ones that are in the top 10, how high, like, what was their highest ranking? What was their lowest ranking? And again, somebody had Lamar Jackson, who's won 2 MVPs, right? They didn't even have him as a top 10 quarterback. And whatever you think of Lamar Jackson, like, if you don't think he's a top 10 quarterback right now in football, then I don't know what. And this is supposedly from scouts, GMs, executives. Like, so what the hell are they watching too? It just it boggles my mind. So, like,
I think your point stands with the executives, though. They don't watch a lot of ball. Now, the scouts do, but scouts is kind of a loose term. There's a lot of scouts out there, and
right.
There's some scouts that stop watching after college, right? They only watch college ball. That's all they're focused on, So it's a pretty loose thing, but
and they want to confirm their priors too.
Exactly. There's a lot of bias built in. I did see the point on Caleb Williams where it's the lowest ranking unranked. So he may be in the top 10, but there's also some people who just have zero, very, very low opinion of him as well.
And I think Mahomes had like a low rating of 8th or 9th or something crazy like that. And I'm like, yeah, he's coming off a down year, but like, if you think he's the 8th rank, I believe that's what it was. Maybe I could be wrong, but if you think he's the 8th best quarterback, like, you're out of your mind. Like, it's Patrick Mahomes.
And the one that got my attention that I almost did want to comment on was the Madden ratings that got leaked. And Mahomes is at like 93 overall, while Joe Burrow is at 97. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing here? Like, in what universe has Joe Burrow been better than Pat Mahomes at any point? It's silly.
And I think the golf thing too with the ESPN one, I think somebody had him 5th. Like, that was his highest rating. It was like, who? Like, Jared Goff. Anybody that thinks Jared Goff's fifth rate, you should not be a scout, GM, or coach any longer. Like, you should just turn it in. You're done. Do something else in life.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So like Jordan Love's a top 10 quarterback. If you want to argue, I don't care. Like, you can look at it statistically. He's clearly a top 10 quarterback, or you can just open your eyes and watch football. He's clearly a top 10 quarterback. How you put him in the top 10, I don't really care, but he's in the top 10. Beyond that, like, I have no time for these stupid lists. It's ridiculous. And I think like the thing where Jordan, and it's been like this Jordan Love, like, why isn't he getting the respect? And yeah, he's not getting it. And I think part of it is he lives in the shadow of Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to continue to do that until he wins an MVP or wins a Super Bowl or has like sustained deep playoff. Like, he's going to live in that shadow. Unfortunately, that's just what it is. Rodgers dealt with it. He lived in Favre's shadow until he won a Super Bowl, and then that was it. And the other thing is, people sometimes see these ugly interceptions that Jordan throws, and they don't realize he only threw 6 interceptions all of last season. But some of them were really ugly, and that's true. But you also don't notice how many excellent throws he made that a lot of quarterbacks on these top 10 lists could have never dreamed of making. Right? You don't see how good he is on a week-to-week basis, or how much better he's gotten since 2023 when he became the starter. And then I think the other thing they get hurt on, and this is probably a Packer thing, is that they finished last season on a 5-game losing streak, and they blew a 21-3 playoff lead. So like,
Yep.
When you do that stuff, that's what people are seeing when they're doing these stupid rankings. And then, and that affects them, and it shouldn't, but that's part of the human thing, is that they see that kind of stuff. But yeah, the list thing is like the talk right now, and it's just because there's nothing else going on in the NFL. So the lists are coming out. We have to talk about it, and the lists are stupid and they make no sense. But most importantly, they're worthless.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of stinky opinions. We've all got them, and I'm okay with it personally. Like, I do think some of it's annoying, but at the same time, I'm good. Like, I'm good with the hate. Bring on the hate. Bring on
whatever.
Sleep on the team, because this team under LaFleur hasn't historically done well when they get built up. Whenever everybody's calling them Super Bowl champs or Super Bowl contenders, whatever.
Right.
When they're being lifted up and having smoke blown up their butts, they don't do well. But I love it. Bring on the underdog role. Bring it on. Underestimate this team all the way and live in that, because I think that will be a much better situation and mentality for these players than if, Love was a top 10 player on the NFL top 100 and, top 5 QB, all this stuff. Because again, even from that side, doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything. So when the ball gets played, when you get on the field and you strap them up, the lists go out the window. You could be the number 1 player in the league, and if you don't play good ball, it doesn't matter. So
Right.
That's where, like, to all you Bears fans that are living and dying by these lists, good luck, because real football is about to be played, and it's going to get rough for you. We got our friend R Showers jumping in with us, says, I agree that Jordan Love is clearly a top 10 and held back by really poor play calling and game management. Hey, okay. Yeah, that, you know what? That'll be a topic tonight. That is one of the looming concerns, I think. But yeah, even game management, play calling considered, he's still done very well. Like, he's succeeded in spite of that. So I'm unmoved by these lists. I think some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are annoying. I will say our friend Rob Westerman out there had a great tweet earlier. Said Jordan Love is one of 3 QBs with 80 plus touchdowns and fewer than 30 interceptions since 2023, joining Matt Stafford and Lamar Jackson. That is a list I can get behind, because there's some real hard performance right there. Like, very difficult to argue with that stat. Large sample size, very, very impactful performance. That's the list I want our guy on right there. So to everybody else who wants to talk about EPA and executives and scouts and all this other stuff, you go Do whatever you got to do over there. I'm pumped to watch our guy get on the field this year.
Yeah. I mean, the EPA makes him look really good. He's like,
well, yeah, it does. Right.
Like if you look at the advanced stats, he's one of the best in the NFL by pretty much all the advanced stats. So, yeah,
I think EPA gets lost on some people though. They
yeah,
hear that and they're like, I don't even know what that is. Like,
right. It's okay. Some kind of, and it's literally like, this is how efficient you are as a quarterback. Yeah. Right. That's just
kind of boils down decision making and performance.
Right. People want to live by the fantasy stats or the box score stats, and it's just like, it's not like that. And it's funny too, because like Justin Herbert, like he's been terrible in the playoffs. Like, what has his team done? Right. But for some reason, he's always like missed. Like people are in love with Justin Herbert, and it's like, what? Like, yeah, he's got a great arm, but like, what has he really done? Right. Like, I don't know. I don't get it with some of these guys. And he's one of them that always pops. Like, I think he's really good, but like at the same time, at some point you got to play good in a playoff game and win a playoff game. Jordan Love at least won one, and he played really good against the Bears. I mean, if Jaden Reed makes a catch on the last drive, I think the perception changes. Or if Christian Watson can come down with that catch near the end zone, that would have been a touchdown. Things are maybe a little different with some of these lists, but you know,
still, I mean, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 300 plus yards. Like, stop it. Stop. We're not talking about, you know, the Bears. Oh, he couldn't get it done. I'm sorry. If Caleb had 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 300 yards, we would not be hearing about how he couldn't get it done. They would have a whole lot of other things to say, but they wouldn't be saying that. So, yeah, I'm just not hearing a lot of those things. But again, I am very excited to see this team get on the field. I think there's a lot to be excited about, but there is a lot to be concerned about. There is. So let's jump into these concerns, because I have a few, and I'll get started with my top one, because this one is just, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it, but it applies to everyone, and that's injuries. Injuries are the top concern. I think with this team, there's a few spots that if you lose a guy and you have to deal with a season-ending injury, it changes the trajectory of the entire season. And yeah, you'd like to believe, okay, next man up mentality. Sure. That's worked in some cases. You know, the 2010 Packers were definitely in that category, next man up, and they did it, and it was awesome. But most teams cannot weather that storm. Most teams, even if they want to have the next man up mentality, the next man up just isn't that man, you know? And the Packers experienced that a little bit last year when Micah Parsons went down. Oh, next man up. Next man up ain't Parsons. Just not happening. Like, it's just not the same. You have to change your style of play for that to work. And so injuries are my biggest concern going into this season, and not really any player in particular. I will say, actually, my concern meter for Christian Watson, which I know is one of the ones that everybody likes to bring up, is actually low. I think that he has proven that he overcame the soft tissue stuff. He came back from the ACL, very, very impressive, in a way that a lot of guys don't. He might have even looked better afterwards. Took a few hits last year where you're kind of going, oh no, and he popped up and he kept going. I mean, I think his impression of toughness for me has really, really increased last season. So he's not even at the top of that list for me. But, I guys like Marshawn Lloyd, we definitely want to see him bounce back. Guys like Colin Oliver, if you can get those guys to come in and perform, and we talked about it a little bit last week, that's like new players that, you haven't had before, and that's awesome. Getting those guys to contribute, I think, would be huge, a massive net positive. But then, you want to be able to keep your O-line healthy, man. We don't want to see a Zach Tom going down, struggling with it. We don't want to see Aaron Banks struggling with injury. We don't want to see these guys struggling with injuries, because that changes the makeup of the whole thing, and it presents a greater challenge for the coaching staff, who maybe we're not all that confident in to begin with. But, when you introduce those challenges, then the scheme doesn't get to live up to, the potential, and we don't get to see this thing go on all cylinders. And I think that's what we're really rooting for, is to see this thing go on all cylinders. And if you lose while you're firing on all cylinders, so be it. I can live with that. But when you lose and you have to look back and go, God, dog, if we would have had Tucker Kraft, if we would have had Micah Parsons, if we would have had Zach Tom, if we would have, when you have to have that, it's just such an empty feeling. And so that for me is my biggest concern going into this season. How about you, man?
Well, I'll just say about injuries, like that's the biggest unknown. You don't know when or who or how they're going to strike. And it's like that every year. And you hope you can get through it. Like you're going to have injuries. Nobody comes out of it healthy. I mean, you see teams, sometimes will make it through a season. They only play 5 offensive linemen all year, or they're incredibly healthy. And those teams are usually the ones that advance pretty far. But more often than not, you're going to have injuries, and you just hope that they're not to your key players, like we saw last year with the Packers, and that they're not for long stretches without those key players. But you just don't know. And I think at least going into this season, other than Micah Parsons, like everybody else should be back at some point in training camp. Whether or not Kraft and Tom and Wyatt are practicing on July 29th. We'll see when we get there. They all very well may not be. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are, but they're going to be practicing at some point in August. And from all indications, they'll be ready week 1. Parsons, we're going to wait on, and however long that takes, it's going to take that time. If it's 5 weeks, 6 weeks, if it's 10 weeks, 12 weeks, we'll see. But beyond that, you got to keep your team healthy, and there's no planning for it. Like there's some things you can do off season with how you train your players, strength and conditioning staff and all that, medical team. But like sometimes it's just football and guys are going to get hurt. Like it's a physical contact sport. And it's tough to figure out and plan for. And, that's always to me, like we were just talking about lists, and we're going to see all these predictions coming out, and we're hearing about how good the Rams are going to be because they made a ton of big moves, and how good, other teams are going to be around the league, and we're going to see predictions on where, who's going to be winning divisions and making the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, it takes 1 or 2 injuries for those teams, and it changes everything. And there will be a team or 2, maybe more, that will have those injuries that we all thought are going to be Super Bowl contenders, and it'll knock them out. Happens every year. And you don't know who those players or the teams are. And it sucks, but that's part of sports, and it's especially part of football. So yeah, you hope for much improved health for the Packers this year. I mean, like, just look at the offense. Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson played 1 game together last year. Think how good their offense could have been with those 2 guys. I mean, not even all season, because we knew Watson was missing the first half coming off ACL. But like, think about like once he came back, if we would have had Kraft the rest of the way, like how much things could have been better. Right. And maybe they survive against Chicago even without Parsons and Wyatt and Tom. But like the injuries hit and they snowball sometimes, especially when they're the key guys. And you're going to get injuries. It's just who's it to? How long are they out? And obviously, can you manage them? And that plays a big role with your depth. You brought up the offensive line. It is rare, especially in a 17-game season, to make it through with the same 5 starters every week. So we'll talk about the offensive line here in a little bit. But that's why, like, offensive lineman number 6, and offensive lineman number 7, and offensive lineman number 8, like, those guys are going to play at some point. So, like, they got to be able to at least go in there and get you through a game, or get you through a few games as starters, like, and playing a role for you. They don't have to play all year and be really good and be Pro Bowl players, but they got to at least get you through that. And that's going to be a big test for the Packers, and really for every team in the NFL this year, because you don't make it through a season healthy. So, yeah, the injuries every year that are a huge concern, especially for a team like this with so many key players coming off major injuries.
Yeah, for sure. So that for me is the biggest thing. Again, the random nature of it. You don't know who it's going to be, when it's going to be, and what that's going to prevent. But like, to your point, like if you give Jordan Love a full season of Tucker Kraft and Christian Watson, whoo boy, like I want to see that. Yeah. I want to see what that looks like, and I don't think the Bears want to see that. I think that might be a little bit frightening to them. But even, to be able to make it through the season with 5 offensive linemen, the same 5 rotations is incredibly rare. But if you can do it, it's a very big deal. And the continuity of those guys being able to, I've heard a lot of them talk about it, knowing the guy next to you and what he's going to do, and not having to guess about that. But obviously also knowing your own assignment, when those guys can play the same position next to the same guy or same couple guys, if they're on the interior, throughout the entire season, that levels up their performance. It just naturally does. So you want to see those things. We won't get to, right? There's guaranteed to be something we're not going to get to see this season because of it. So my hope is that that's minimal. Hopefully it's not a big deal, not a big storyline. And, it might have to be like a no-hitter. You just don't talk about it. We just, if they have a healthy start to the season, we just leave that alone. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to let it where it lies. But no. And then, for me, the next thing that comes to mind would be lack of development. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of guys that we look at right now, especially before Micah Parsons comes back, that if they have that year 1 to year 2 jump in development where they've gotten a little bigger, a little faster, a little stronger in the offseason, got a little wiser from the tape, they should be a better player. They should be a better version of what they were last season. Guys like Barron Sorrell, guys like Matthew Golden, even Colin Oliver, hopefully. Those are the types of guys you want to see take that next step. Even maybe you could throw Edge Cooper in there, right? You want to see him continue. It's only his third year. You want to see him keep going. So that's if you don't see that development, I think that definitely could be a big concern. And it's kind of like injuries. Some guys will, some guys won't, right? Some guys will have a nice, noticeable leap from year 1 to year 2. Some guys will disappear, hopefully we don't see a lot of that, but it's almost guaranteed, right? Almost guaranteed some of them will disappear and won't do well, won't take a step forward. But hopefully they do, and so that's my next concern is just a lack of development. Who's it going to be that doesn't take a step forward, doesn't look better than they did last year? And what is that effect going to have? So like a guy like a Barron Sorrell, you need your pass rush to really come through and step up while Micah's out. If he takes a step back in some way, man, that's a huge, huge hit, in my opinion. Now, yeah, there's other people, but he's a big piece. He's a big piece in that pass rush room when Micah's not on the field. And, on the other side of that, if he does take that development step forward, boy, you got some good news on the field at that point, because then when Micah comes back, now you got him, you got Micah, you got LVN. LVN might be in that category a little bit. You want to see him develop too. He's obviously not year 1 to year 2, but we still haven't seen necessarily all of the development we want out of him. So if you can get those guys to show up in a better version of themselves than they were last season, now we're talking. Now you're really cooking with something that is exciting. And then you add a Micah Parsons to that mix later on, and the depth looks good, the rotation looks good, and all of a sudden you're a really tough team to deal with. So that's probably my second biggest concern. What about you?
No, I hear you there too as well. And this is a team that needs that in development, and not so much like they had a very small rookie class, 6 players. They didn't do a ton in free agency. So you're counting a lot on the guys that were already here and that were either like playing lesser roles and now are being given bigger roles, or that were here and maybe it was injuries, or maybe it was depth at a certain position that's not there as much now, but now they have a bigger chance to take on a much bigger role for this team. So yeah, those guys that have already been in that locker room and already been on this team are going to be way more, I don't want to say important, but I think they're going to have a way bigger impact on how 2026 goes than any rookie or any new outside addition is going to have. So yeah, that's going to be a huge factor as far as how this team develops. I mean, you just look at guys like Van Ness and Jordan Morgan, 2 recent first-round picks who now are, especially in Morgan's case, going to get much bigger roles and be counted on a whole lot more. And there's so much riding on those 2 players in particular that they have to develop. And if they don't, it's not going to probably be good for this team, because there's not the guy behind them that can pick up the slack, really.
Exactly.
And, and you can pretty much go across the board for almost all the positions on this team. There's young players that need to develop and take the next step to get better and improve offensively and defensively. So yeah, it's I'm right there with you. Development of the guys, like we want the rookies to come in and have an impact. I don't think they're going to, and that's just part of being a rookie in the NFL, being a rookie with the Packers. Maybe Cisse does that. Maybe Burton. I think those two are the most likely year one. McClellan too, not counting the kicker, of course, but because he better be
he has to.
He has to.
Yeah.
I don't want to even get into that, but like Cisse, McClellan, Burton, I think those are the ones that have the biggest opportunity year one. But we need, like, if they can do anything above and beyond expectations, it's a bonus. We need the guys that are already here in the building to develop and take the next step. And they're going to have a big opportunity because they now have those big roles since the Packers let a lot of guys leave in the offseason and have some guys coming off of injury. So now these younger players can step up and they have their opportunity. So yeah, a lot of the season's riding on the guys that were already here in house and how they improve. Or not, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why I would call that a concern, because there's definitely a possibility for some of those guys to not improve. Now, I don't know if I'm quite on our friend R. Showers page here. He says very little faith in player development. Sure, we get unicorns like Kraft, other than Evan Williams, who is at least as productive as we thought they'd be. Well, listen, I think there's a few guys. I wouldn't be so doom and gloom on the player development. There are going to be players who don't. There are going to be disappointments, but you got guys like Jaden Reed who have developed well. You got guys like
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love. Like, yeah,
Zach Tom.
Zach Tom was the one I was trying to come up with just a second. Yeah, so Zach Tom comes to mind. There's definitely plenty of players that have done well and have developed well. Even Edge Cooper, right? I mean, he looked great his rookie year. I wouldn't even say that he looked bad last year. He just didn't look like you wanted him to. And we probably put some unfair all-pro type expectations.
I did.
He didn't have a bad season, so he's one that I would still have in that category of Bullard. I expect him to continue to develop.
I think Bullard got better from his rookie year to his second year.
Yeah, Bullard did. McDuffie, he just got his extension. Now, he's not a star player, but man, like the guy is reliable. He's a great stopgap when you need a reliable piece in there. So there's definitely been guys that have developed, and I would even say that there's a case to be made for Carrington Valentine. He's certainly not as good as you want him to be, but for a 7th round pick, he developed all right.
Better than most 7th round picks.
Yeah, I mean, that's like those are usually not great players.
Right. The practice squad guys.
Right.
A lot of times. Yeah.
So I would say, and even guys that aren't here, Romeo Dobbs developed well. Dontavian Wicks probably didn't develop as well as you wanted him to, but he still had some great moments. Musgrave has been a little bit of a disappointment. LVN's been a little bit, you could come up with some disappointments. And I would say the jury's still out on some of them. You got to give LVN some time this season to really prove what he is. And that's where that injury card comes back into play. If you can get these guys healthy on the field, you can really know what they are. I think that's been the biggest problem is some of them, you got these injuries, and I know the cliche, the best ability is availability. I get that. I think the context matters in those cases. Some guys just can't get it done. And I think, a guy like Marshawn Lloyd is definitely on his last opportunity to prove that he can stay healthy. But there's definitely some who have developed well. And so I don't think that there's reason to say, oh, well, we just assume that they're not going to develop. I don't agree with that. But yeah, it's very random and unpredictable as far as like who will, who won't, just the same way injuries are. And that's where if some of these guys do, man, look out. Seriously, look out. Like, I mean, if Matthew Golden comes out and he can give us a more consistent version of himself with like that look like the flashes we saw last season, man, the offense is just gonna cruise. It's gonna be awesome. And a guy like Sorrell, like I said, if he can come in and he can show a step forward, That's big. And Belton's another one. We haven't even talked about him. If he can take a step forward, and I saw a good article about him. We might have talked about it a little bit last week, but as far as the continuity at his position, he's in the same position as Jordan Morgan. He was tossed around to different positions, never played right guard, and then gets tossed into right guard, and he had to figure it out. And he had to figure it out on the fly. And now he's had a whole offseason to adjust, which that's a big deal. We're going to find out what that means. But just the same, if he looks the same this season as he did last season, that's a bad sign. That's a sign that he didn't develop. And you're going to figure that out pretty quick, I think, with some of these guys. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't assume, doom and gloom or anything like that. I wouldn't say that there's little faith in that. But, it really, I think it does come down to the individual. Some of these guys have kind of the right mentality, and I think some of them maybe don't. But I will say I think the Packers are good at finding those types of guys who are intrinsically motivated and have the right things going on between their ears to want to be good pros and get better at their craft. So yeah, it's a concern. It's a big part of how, this team will be in 2026. And we're going to find out pretty quick, I think, with a lot of these guys. So yeah, and then we got our buddy Matthew Tan here. He says, "Hi, Myles and Tim. Good to see you, Matthew. Glad you're listening with us. He says, how you both doing? I'll tell you what, we'll be doing better once football starts. I can promise you that. Yes. We'll be doing better when that gets going. But there's still a list of concerns. The next one that I have, and I don't know which one. I'll bring this one up first. If Matt LaFleur continues to struggle with accountability, and that's one that maybe can stretch across a lot of these points that we're talking about. If we're still seeing the same mistakes being made week in and week out without correction, that to me signals sort of that lack of accountability that I think led to those collapses that they had last season. It's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long season. It's going to be ugly. You'll have your high moments that we get excited about, but we're probably going to be in for some more disappointment, because at the end of the day, these guys have got to be, I want to say afraid, but you have to have a healthy respect, like a fearful respect of your leader to not want to disappoint them. And when you're making the same mistakes week in and week out, that tells me that you're watching your film and going, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's not okay. Yeah. Blowing a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, not okay, right? Like missing 7 points as a kicker in a 4-point loss, not okay. And I think that message was sent. But there was definitely a lot, and it was over the last couple of years, of a lack of accountability. And if that continues, that's a big concern for me. Now, I have said a few times why I think that could change. And, one of the big reasons is that Bisaccia is gone. I think he was a little bit of the buddy coach. You've got a new defensive coordinator, which is a different relationship between head coach and defensive coordinator. Whether that'll be good or bad is what we're waiting to see. But I do think that maybe he and, LaFleur and Hafley might have been a little bit too close. I don't know that LaFleur was holding Hafley accountable the way he needed to in some situations. So that one's a big concern for me. What do you think, man?
Man, if they blow a double digit or second half lead in week one, it is going to get ugly real fast. Something's got to change. What we saw last season, especially, the last 5 weeks of the season, that cannot roll over into this year in any way possible. Like it's got to change. Like you call it accountability, whether it's team management, game management, accountability, whatever it is, late game performance, whatever we want to call it. Like it can't continue. It cannot. And if it starts off that way, it's going to get ugly for Matt LaFleur. I mean, there's a portion of Packer fans, maybe there's a lot in that portion. There's certainly some in our comments that no matter what he does, they are going to be out there to kill them. You know, it'll be the first 3rd down and 1 that doesn't work out, and they're going to be fire Matt. Like no
He's
anything,
done. Get him out.
right? Like anything but a Super Bowl is not going to please those people, and even a Super Bowl, they will still probably find something to nitpick. You didn't win by enough points or something like that. So, like, I don't worry about that part of it, but as a skeptical Matt LaFleur fan, I have my concerns, and we've been through this a lot since the end of last season. Everything that how they looked at the end of last season, everything about that has to change this year. That cannot be carried over or brought over into this season. And if it is, I don't know how you can defend them anymore going forward. Like we've seen that enough. We've seen the second half collapses and the whether game management. Okay, there's some of that, and I think sometimes that also gets overblown a little bit. But game management, play calling, and just the failure of the team to like be able to turn things around once they get in a rut within a game, and just things to snowball. And I'm like, that cannot happen. And it could be like you mentioned a lot of possible reasons for it, and they're all valid, and I get that. But like whatever it is has to change this year. It has to. And I would say they got to get off to a good start to like kind of ease into it and like calm the fears and make people feel better. But this is something that's going to be with them all season, because it was a late season issue last year. They were 9-3 in Denver, scoring points on like, one of the top defenses in football, going up and down the field, lighting up the scoreboard. Everything looked great. I'm watching that game against Denver thinking, oh my God, if this is our team, like we're on the road against one of the best teams in the AFC, one of the best defenses in football, and this is how we're doing. Like we got something here. Like this is a Super Bowl contender. Like the Packers are going far. And then it all fell apart.
Off.
Right. And there was no getting any of the wheels back on.
Yeah.
Like they fell off and they were gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, like you and I talked the next day after Parsons' injury, and we're like, yeah, like the Super Bowl dreams, it's gone. Like, but you can still sound like your season's not over, but that Super Bowl dream is probably over without Micah Parsons. And there was just no recovery from that. And they had leads against the Bears. Like they were in games. They were in the game in Chicago that they should have won in the regular season, covering an onside kick.
I think that's the biggest frustrating part is you see the wheels come off, and then you see these games where it's like, oh, geez, all right, we got double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. We should win this game,
right?
Even though all these other things are against us, and then you find a way to lose. And it's like, oh, come on, man, what's going on here?
You threw out the Minnesota game because that was a preseason game that they played. That doesn't count. The Baltimore game, they got steamrolled on defense. They had they couldn't stop Baltimore's.
That was a bad one, man.
That was ugly for the defense.
That one to me falls a lot on Halfley. And again, that LaFleur's the boss, right? So, leadership, it all comes back to him. But that one, all they could do was run. You knew they couldn't throw the ball. And you still let them just steamroll you. That one was bad. I mean, even Joe Barry passed that test, and that was, was still against Derrick Henry a few years ago when I think it was the Titans at the time. They came in, and Joe Barry is like, look, you got to stop the run. And he did. He put together a game plan that worked, and Halfley couldn't do it. Like that's what I'm talking about.
But Halfley has good press conferences, so he didn't get the criticism. Right. Like, and I kind of feel like that's part of it. And I like Halfley, and I don't want to slam him too much, but like, you're right. Like those blown fourth quarter leads, it wasn't just Matt LaFleur. It wasn't just Jordan Love in the offense. It was the defense too. And like Baltimore, they had no chance in it because their defense couldn't get a stop, no matter how great Malik Willis played, no matter how great the play caller, Matt LaFleur, designing a different offense for a different quarterback was in that game. He doesn't get any credit because the defense got steamrolled. But you blew games against the Bears that you should have won. And it's like, it just, for all the things that went wrong in those games, it can't happen. And I don't think there's any one simple solution. Of course there's not. There's a lot of things that went into all that. But going back to your point, like accountability, facing adversity and overcoming it, whatever it may be, like there's got to be a big change this year, or there's got to be a change in head coach, frankly. Like it's at that point, like you cannot keep doing this again. And, will we really know the answer to that question? Probably not until the end of the season, but you're going to kind of see how it goes throughout the season when they get in situations similar to last year. Like, and how do they respond? How do they put a team away? Can they put a team away in the second half that they should? Like, does it look different? Is the result different? Like, yeah, it's a question that is going to stay with this team all year. And I think it's a cloud that's kind of going to be, at least from the outside, I don't know if they feel it as much inside, but like as fans here, like that's going to be the unanswered like question all year. And I think even if this team's really good all year and they're playing well and they look good, it's still going to be that, yeah, but let's see how they play down the stretch and how they play in the playoffs. Like, are they able to hold a lead? Are they able to not, kick themselves in the shins all the time and blow games? Like that's going to like just be hanging over this team until they can prove otherwise.
Yeah, and that's, you say we might not know till the end of the season. I think we'll know. And I'll even give them until Micah Parsons comes back, but I think you'll know. I think you'll be able to feel it. Maybe not in the first month of the season, because for whatever reason, the first month usually feels different than the rest of the season when you look back on it. But I think by the end of October, we'll know whether or not something has changed. And yeah, it has to. It has to. And again, I'll go back to and point to the things the reasons why I think that there will be a change. For starters, Bisaccia, I think he, as an assistant head coach, had some of the responsibility for accountability and probably didn't fulfill that entirely. And I think the relationship between LaFleur and Hafley was also one that made it difficult for LaFleur to hold Hafley accountable the way he needed to. So I think those two things changing have a large potential to change the whole mood of accountability on the team. Now, I do want to go back to a point here that our Showers made. It says, we will not win a Super Bowl because of Matt LaFleur genius. Undercurrent of player discontent, that Cleveland debacle, the Chicago playoff debacle, plenty more debacles to choose from. The player discontent is what I want to talk about. That's the reason LaFleur's still here, in my opinion. When we were not, listen, my hair was on fire after that Chicago playoff game. I was ready to cut him loose. I was ready to new head coach, get him out. And the players, especially guys like Jordan Love, were the ones to step up and say, nope, that's my coach. They came to his defense publicly. That's different. If the players in the locker room are ready for him to go, you see what happened with, in Baltimore with Harbaugh. He's gone, right? Player discontent was the reason he's gone. I think you'd be right if that were true. If the players really were out on the floor, I don't think he's the head coach right now, because I think Ed Policy could take that pulse. Yeah. I think that's part of what saved his job. And I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I think it's a big thing. I don't know that the player discontent is something that's maybe as real as the fans probably feel like it would be. Sure, there's probably some players that are pissed off about how they lost those games last year. But again, I think us as fans, we really let Hafley off the hook. We let him off the hook. And one of the ones that we heard from this offseason was Bullard. And he's saying, they got to play like a-holes, man. Well, guess what? His coach was the defensive coach. His coach was Hafley, not LaFleur. LaFleur wasn't the one setting his tone. As much as maybe you think he should be, Hafley was the one setting his tone. Hafley's the one he's responding to, saying, we weren't playing like assholes. We need to be playing like assholes. And that's where I think that there was a lot more to fall on him. But the overall thing is, I don't think the player discontent is there. I really don't. And
no, it's not.
I think if it was, it would be more obvious. And another point I want to go back to, because I think these are some valid questions. So in regard to the player development, our Shower said, is Nixon
I'll take
better?
this one.
Was Wicks better? Was Morgan better? Is Ryan better? Is Musgrave? None of the D-line exceeded expectations. There are many more failures and wins. Okay, I'm going to turn you loose, Tim. But what I want to say here, one, when I'm referring to player development, I really leave free agents out of it. So Nixon is one of those. Like when you bring in a free agent, he is what he is. Josh Jacobs is what he is. Nixon is what he is. When you bring in guys like that, that is what they are. I don't expect them to develop more from there. The other thing I'll say is context matters. Go get them, Tim.
Okay, so a couple things. Look at Seattle, just won the Super Bowl. Go through their roster. Has every player been great on that roster? Has every player developed like how they hoped? Absolutely not. It also depends on your expectations. And as a fan, if you expect Carrington Valentine as a 7th round pick to be a starting every week solid cornerback, that's a pretty high expectation, and it's pretty unrealistic because 7th round picks usually don't even make the team, or if they do, they don't stay around very long. And under this regime's watch, they've developed Carrington Valentine. Say what you will, and I'm going to knock Carrington Valentine. I don't think he's a starter, but I think for a 7th round pick, he's exceeded realistic expectations. I think Rasheed Walker, who was a starting left tackle, exceeded expectations as a 7th round pick.
For sure.
When he was drafted, who the hell thought he was going to come in and be a starting left tackle for this team for 3 years? Nobody. He brings up Keyshawn Nixon. I don't like Keyshawn Nixon as a player very much right now.
Don't make me defend Nixon.
Don't make me defend Nixon. But has he exceeded what the expectation was when they signed him? Yes, he has. And it's unquestionable. Like, they signed him as a depth guy and as kick returner. He's turned into a starting quarterback. Should he still be a starting quarterback? No. But should he be a cornerback that's on an NFL team and exceed it like what he was when they first picked him up, which was when he was signed? Most Packer fans said, who the hell is Keyshawn Nixon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it time to get better than Keyshawn Nixon at corner? 1,000%. That's my number one concern with this team. He brings up Jordan Morgan again, and I feel like we've been through Jordan Morgan a million times this offseason, so I'm not going to beat it because
you're right.
I want to see Jordan Morgan too. We don't know what Jordan Morgan is as a left tackle because they put him at right guard. Was he good at right guard? No. Should he have been playing there as much as he was? No. He should have been given the opportunity to play the position that he was drafted to play, the position
which
that
he has
played,
now.
Which he is now. When he was given that position last year in training camp for 3 or 4 weeks when Rasheed Walker was hurt, he played it pretty damn well to the point where people that were there every week watching him, or every day watching him, were saying, he looks better than Rasheed Walker. You and I were saying he should at least be in a rotation with Rasheed Walker. They decided let's put him at guard and put him in a rotation at guard instead. And it failed. He wasn't a guard. But can we pump the brakes on killing Jordan Morgan until you actually see him play regular season NFL football at left tackle?
You have to.
If you want to say he hasn't developed, you don't know what his development has been at left tackle, other than he looked pretty damn good there when he was allowed to play left tackle last season in August. Let's see him actually do it in a regular season. Musgrave was a miss because of injuries, and he's just not a fit for what they want to do with this offense. Has he developed? No. Tucker Kraft sure has, who they took in the 3rd round that year. I could keep going, and I'm not like.
Well, let me sprinkle on too. The one thing that we need to keep in mind is how old these guys are. You don't know what these guys will be until they're several years into the league. Jordan Morgan is 24 years old. There were players that just got drafted in April that are older than him, right? Like he's still young. Like he's still figuring out what's going on and how to be a professional, stuff like that. And another one that I want to throw in there is Cooper, Edgerrin Cooper. I'm trying to find his age right here. But he's 24 years old too. These guys are not 29 years old. They're 30 years old. They're not a finished product. You got to definitely give them more time on these things.
And I see the Cooper stuff too in our comments. And it's he wasn't as good his second year as a rookie because he didn't make the splash plays. You can go back to his rookie year and the coaches were even saying he's making all these splash plays, but he's also out of position a lot and he's guessing a lot. And he's just getting lucky and getting So the second year he didn't have the splash plays, and we were all like, "Oh, this." And I was guilty going into a second year. Like I thought he was like an all-pro waiting to happen, and I still think
Me
he
too.
can be. But I think
Yes.
he was at least solid last year. You just didn't see the tackles behind the line of scrimmage. You didn't see the turnover plays. I don't think he was bad, but it's like a normal progression. Like he was above my expectations as a rookie. And then year two, he probably was what he should have been. But our expectations were different because what we saw as a rookie. So, like, can we see him year three before we just like say they're not developing Edgerrin Cooper? Like, the dude's really talented. Give him a chance.
Yeah.
Javon Bullard got better. Evan Williams has gotten better. Evan Williams is the 4th round pick. He's gotten better his 2 years in the league. Like Sean Ryan was brought up. Like Sean Ryan couldn't get on the field as a rookie. He was an afterthought. Like there was questions, is he even going to be on the team his second year? And now as your starting center, is he going to be Creed Humphrey? Is he going to be an all-pro center? Absolutely not. But he showed over the 9 games he started there last year that he can at least be a solid, serviceable center for you.
And he's
And
25.
maybe more. Right. And he can grow. Like it's his first time really getting extensive duty at that position. Like, so now now you should see the growth. And if you don't, then yeah, you can question it. But again, I go back to as a rookie, he was barely on the field. Now he's a guy that you're giving a second contract to, expecting to be your starting center. Like he has gotten better. So like, I think some of this gets lost and like fans just want everybody to be so friggin' good. And it's like, any team in the league doesn't have all pros at every position. Every team doesn't hit on every draft pick. Like every 7th-round pick or 6th-round pick, doesn't turn into a starter. They don't make the team a lot of time. And McDuffie just got a contract. And like, I see people questioning that. And like, I get it. Like he's nothing special, but like he was a 6th-round pick. He's already exceeded expectations, right? Like he's past what he should be.
And he's
Do you want
26 years old, guys. He's not even old. He seems like he's been
right?
around this team for
And
10 years. He's
you
26.
you don't want him starting every week, right? I get that. But like if he's got to fill in for 3 or 4 games, he can get the job done. He showed that a little bit last year when Quay was out, and it was like, yeah, he's not a world beater. He's not, Roquan Smith or whoever, if he's not Fred Warner, but like he can get the job done. And like there's not a huge drop off there. He plays special teams, and it's like for a 6th-round pick, he has developed and he has gotten better. And it's like that's again, you need players like that depth-wise to get you through a season. So like, have they been perfect? Absolutely not. But like no team in the league is, and their players like they've developed them. They've developed a quarterback who a lot of the majority
Most
of people
teams are
didn't
not
want.
doing that. Most
Right.
teams stink at developing They cannot develop a quarterback. They're handed talented quarterbacks with talent out of the universe, and they screw them up.
And he can still get better.
They don't even not develop them. They break them.
Right. So like, yeah, like they've had their misses, but they've had more guys that have hit and developed beyond what they probably should be, beyond the comparable player, beyond their draft position. Like they just have. And like and there's other ones that we're going to see. And a lot of them, like a Jordan Morgan, a Lucas Van Ness, like this is their time. And if it's not this year, then we can have that discussion at the end of the year and say, yeah, they didn't get it. But like, there's still that growth period with them. We're not talking about somebody that's 32 that you're saying, yeah, we got to see the growth from them. Like they're not getting any better at that point. You are what you are. Like they have a group of players that is growing, and this is part of the process. And it like, not everybody comes in year one and is like ready to go and they got it all figured out and they're, what they're going to be in 3 years in the NFL. It takes time. So I think some people are just extremely down on this team and they just want to be negative about everything. And it's just like, you got to open your eyes to like what these players were when the Packers got them, where they were drafted. And like, this is normal. Like,
and where they are.
And go look at some of the rosters. Go look like who have the Jets and the Titans and, a million other teams that suck. The Cardinals, look, how have they done? Like that will tell you like how the guys aren't developed. But again, go look at the Seahawks, go look at the Patriots. Like, man, I think the Patriot fans would have been having a much different discussion before last year about how they were developing their guys. And then all of a sudden they had a, miraculous year. That's a team that stayed really healthy and their quarterback made a jump and everything went right for them. and it's now the outlook for the Patriots is so much different than it was a year ago. And kind of with the Seahawks too, because they weren't even a playoff team the first year with McDonald, and now they're a Super Bowl champion. And it's like, yeah, and they didn't hit on everybody, they didn't develop everybody, but like they developed enough, and they developed some that were really good, and that's what they had the difference makers, and they had health.
And the reason I led with context matters is you have to dig into where are these guys and what led to them being either good or not good, And so, one thing, and Cooper, for example, right? So Cooper has a rock star rookie season and then takes a perceived step back last season. Well, we just spent a lot of this episode saying, hey, Hafley shares some blame for what happened last season, and then how does it factor in that he was handed Micah Parsons right at the beginning of the season when they went through the entire offseason developing a defense that didn't include Micah Parsons, right? That they went through the whole offseason and then they got Micah Parsons. So it's like, how much of that changed things, and how much of Quay Walker being what he was did that affect Cooper, right? And then so when you look at it that way, all right, now let's look at how much Zaire Franklin affects Cooper, right? So you go from a guy like Quay Walker, who is younger, right? I don't know the age difference between him and Cooper, but they're pretty close. Well, Franklin's 30 years old. Franklin's been in the league. I think he just like got a NFLPA award or something like that. He's a leader. He's a veteran. He's a true veteran. He's a guy who has become the professional he's going to be. Now Cooper's got that guy next to him, right? So that's a totally different ball game than having Quay Walker next to him, and having Jonathan Gannon as your defensive coordinator is totally different than having Jeff Hafley as your defensive coordinator. So these things you have to factor in to what you expect these players to be. And again, it'd be one thing if Cooper's a seventh year guy, it's like, well, you guys still think he can be good. No, he's going into his third year. He's still a child. Like, and I'd say that kind of tongue in cheek. He's a grown ass man, let's be clear, but he's 24 years old. Like, what professionals are you guys working with in the real world at 24 years old are just what they're going to be? I was a dummy when I was 24. The things that I learned after I was 24 are massive. Like, I've forgotten more since I've been 24 than I knew when I was 24. Like that's where it's like, you got to leave room for where are these guys now? Now, anybody who wants to be slightly impatient with a guy like LVN, I get it. He's been in there a few years now, had some injuries. Those are the guys where it's like, yeah, this is put up or shut up. A guy like Cooper, man, I'm not looking at him and going, well, he's not as good as he should be. Well, yeah, he's had 2 seasons, and there's plenty of context to go into where he is and why he's there. To me, that doesn't show any sign of, well, that's poor player development. I don't see that at all. Like, he didn't look lost last year. He didn't look slower or smaller or anything like that. If anything, he looked bigger. He looked faster. He I think was probably in position more last year than he was in his rookie season. No, he didn't make all the splash plays, but again, like, context matters, right? What was the defensive coordinator doing with him? What was Quay Walker doing with him? His running mate there. Those things matter. And going into this season, it's like, this guy is still going to be getting better. He's still getting better. So those are the guys where it's like, and like Sean Ryan, is one that we bring up. That guy has gotten better every year he's been with the Packers. He may not be a world beater or some kind of all pro, but he's legitimately taken steps forward every single year, from this guy's probably not going to make the team to he's a better center than Elton Jenkins. And that was true.
It certainly was last year. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where it's like, with this stuff, you have to leave room for these things and the context to matter. Like with the Jordan Morgan, playing out of position, and now he's back at left tackle again, 24 years old. He's still becoming what he's going to be. You got to leave room for that to happen this year. But that's also why we're talking about this, right? Because the development is a concern. It's not to say they won't develop. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying what it comes down to is the individual and the context that goes into the individual. what's going on between the ears, what is their ambition, what is their level of professionalism, and what does that lead to? So the tight end group is, I think, the right one to look at when you can compare the differences. Musgrave is what he was as a rookie. Musgrave has not developed, in my opinion, at all. He's not terrible, but he's not your tight end one. You don't want him to be your tight end one. He's a solid tight end two. He can be used as a downfield threat, whatever. Tucker Kraft developed. That guy took massive leaps forward from rookie year to now. Now you're talking about him as maybe one of, if not the best tight end in the NFL. Like he could realistically become the best tight end in the NFL in 2026. That's development. And so to say that this team, I have a total lack of faith that they could develop players. Well, they're proving you wrong. I mean, there's players on this roster that are proving you wrong. And just the same, yes, there are some that didn't develop, but because you can't say that the team doesn't develop players well because some didn't develop, because some did. So like the argument is moot there. It's not like, well, we just got lucky with these guys that did develop. Oh, so the whole training staff and the coaches, none of them get credit for that? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. It's the same argument with like blaming everything on the coaches when they lose a game or when they choke in the second half and lose a playoff game. It's like, it's all on the coaches, but what about the players that were on the field and screwed up and didn't get the job done? Like Rasheed Walker all of a sudden can't block anybody. Like, is that a coach's fault? Jaden Reed drops a pass. Romeo Dobbs couldn't recover an onside kick in the first game in Chicago. Like at some point it's the players got to make the plays, right? And like, to go back to your point too, and I like that you brought up Cooper, is like, I wonder, and this is more, we don't even have to get into this, but like, this is just like one of those things that will never be answered, is like, they used him in a way in his rookie year. Like they had him attacking, they had him blitzing, he was firing to the line of scrimmage. And I wonder if then getting Micah Parsons changed how Hafley ran that defense, because it almost seemed like it became like, yeah, we got Micah, just go get the quarterback, Micah. And like, we're going to play, I don't want to say soft, but we're going to just play coverage behind it. We're going to we don't need to blitz as much. We don't need to be as aggressive with our front because we got Micah. And then Micah's going to do some of the rover stuff where he stands up and he comes, over the center or over the guard or whatever. And we were seeing Cooper do that stuff. And then it was like, yeah, maybe they dialed back Cooper because they had Micah, which I guess I can understand that. You got Micah freaking Parsons, but like at the same time, like, why weren't you doing both? Or like, why wasn't Cooper integrated more into that stuff, attacking? And maybe that was part of the reason why Cooper didn't have the impact that he had as a rookie with, the tackle for losses and the turnover plays and that kind of stuff. Like maybe that was part of it, is that they just kind of changed the way they used him, because once they got Micah, they put it all on Micah to make those plays and be the disruptor. So now, especially in the early part of the year when you don't have Micah, maybe Gannon uses him more like he was used as a rookie.
Well, and we've talked about that. I think that has to be part of the plan.
Yeah, I hope so.
You got this guy. He's a great athlete, and Showers brings up, I like the Franklin move, but I have no idea how we cover tight ends and running backs. That may be ugly. I disagree. I think Cooper's fully capable of that, man. He's fast. He can cover. He can get the job done. But how are they using him? What's his assignment? That's the real important part of the conversation that has to be accounted for in all of this. You can't just look at the outcome and go, well, the player sucks. Like that's an incomplete evaluation, in my opinion. So I do think that you've got the athleticism there. Now, sure, maybe Franklin's not the athlete that Cooper is, but Franklin, his ability to call the plays on the defense from the field could very well free up Cooper to be the athletic freak and impact player that he is. And again, I've said that without Micah, I think they need to be sending Cooper. Send him in the A gap, B gap, man. Blow up the offensive line from the inside. Keep the offensive line guessing. Part of the hardest job that they have is figuring out who's coming from where. And if all they have to do is figure out where number one is and account for him, well, you've just done their job for them and made it easier. Instead, make them wonder, well, all right, is Cooper coming? Who's coming? Where are they coming from? Is Bullard coming? Where are these guys coming from? And if you're able to do that, now all of a sudden the offensive line is on their heels, and it's going to be even easier for a guy like Micah to go in there and feast with his athletic ability. So I do think that there has to be some of that. So, and I know we've gone a little long in the pod, but here we thought we wouldn't have a whole lot to talk about. My last concern that I put on my list was Gannon's system, right? What is Gannon's system and what will it do for the players that you have? And, the one thing that I've held on to from his press conference was that we're going to do what our players do well, and we're not going to do what our players don't do well. Okay, well, hopefully he can evaluate that well. But you've got tape from Cooper's rookie year to show you what he does well. So take advantage of that. Throw him in those blitzes and let him wreak some havoc. And same thing can be said across the board for these other players. You've got the season of Xavier McKinney getting, what was it, like 8 picks or something like that a couple seasons ago. What was he doing then? How do you get that version of Xavier McKinney back? Not to say that he was bad last season. He just didn't have as many interceptions. But that's another concern for me is how does Gannon's system come in and use these players' abilities, and how does that translate, especially without Micah Parsons on the field? That's going to be a big deal. And that's going to determine, I think, how we think these players developed, and even on the D line, what does the D line look like? You got Wyatt coming back from injury. We've seen flashes from him. You got plenty of Stackhouse coming into his second year, Brinson in his second year. What are they going to look like from year 1 to year 2? They both got playing time last year as rookies. I think Brinson was a 6th or 7th pick. Stackhouse was undrafted. Those are guys that you don't really expect to get much from. They're more practice squad, kind of bottom of the depth chart guys. They got reps. All right. Well, if they take steps forward, that's a good thing. The floor of the D line comes up. That's good. But you've also got Hargrave there. You got these other guys there that you want to see continue to impact the whole D line. Now, we did have Kenny Clark before, who had some injuries, but outside of that, it's been a young D line. You haven't had a Hargrave type of leader or veteran in that group now for a little while. Certainly not last season. So that's another thing that could affect McClellan and could help him develop and be more of an impact as a rookie than he otherwise would be. So all the context really matters. And right now, going into this season, especially on the defense, you have a very, very different set of circumstances than you had last season. There's more veteran leadership on this defense than there was last season. There's more ability than there was on this defense last season. I'm looking at the cornerback room for sure. But you have, I think, more there that can bring out the best in the guys that maybe you were disappointed by last season, and give you reason to think that they would develop and take a step forward. And again, Gannon being kind of the wild card of all of that, how does his system play? But I'll say even that, and I think our buddy Matthew Tan had a question about that, with Gannon coming in, and I'm trying to find it, Matthew. I want to put you up here. Here he is. I hope Gannon is an upgrade over Hafley. My point the whole offseason has been you've got veteran players, good players who want to come play for Gannon. That's a big deal. That's a big sign that he could be an upgrade over Hafley. Now, I think we were all in love with Hafley because of the fact that he was an upgrade over Joe Barry, which is a really low bar, right? So he was good in press conferences. We had fun with that. But it's not impossible to believe that Gannon will be an upgrade over Hafley. Gannon won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, for crying out loud. That's a big deal. That's real. He's got a ring. Hafley doesn't have a ring. So that's one thing to look at and go, man, this could be good. This could be much better than what we saw last season. And again, last season wasn't terrible. It just had some terrible moments. And a lot of those terrible moments were fueled by things that you can't control, like injuries. So that's where I kind of negate the concerns with the reasons for optimism. Yes, there are concerns. And if one thing goes this way, it's bad. But if it goes this way, it's really good. So, those are kind of the things that we've tried to dissect here. But, what do you think, man? Tim, especially with Gannon, like
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one?
No, it's an unknown for me more than it's a concern, I guess, because you don't know exactly what he's going to do and how he's going to run things and utilize his players. And I think that ties into my two biggest concerns, which are the corners and the pass rush without Micah Parsons. And you can look at like Gannon's history; he's not a big blitzer. So okay, if you're not going to blitz a lot of that's going to fall on Van Ness and Sorrell and Dennis Sutton. And is Oliver making the team? Is Brenton Cox making the team? Then you know your interior pass rushers with Wyatt and with Hargrave, like okay, so you're counting on those guys developing and being good enough if you're not a big blitzer, and that's fine. He doesn't have to blitz a ton, but maybe when he does, he gets home at a high percentage, so that can boost your pass rush. And going back to Edgerrin Cooper again, integrating him more within the blitzes than we saw last season. And then the other part of that is like we're going to see probably, again, based on Gannon's history, a lot of cover 4, a lot of quarters coverage. They're going to want to keep 2 safeties back, not give up the explosives like so many teams are playing defense nowadays. Okay, like maybe that helps his corners more than the previous scheme did under Halfley, but I still think there's a major issue at outside cornerback, and it's just they're not good enough. Like I think the floor has gotten higher with St. Juste, Cisse, Jackson. Like I think the floor's higher. We're not talking about Bo Melton being a cornerback now, and like what if Bo Melton has to play? And it was like, but the ceiling hasn't really gotten higher yet because we don't know what Cisse is going to be. Like it will once he's ready, but is he ready week 1? Is he ready week 12? Is he not ready this like you don't know. It's the unknown with a rookie. And so for right now, it's definitely going to be Keyshawn Nixon at one outside corner, and then it's either Valentine or St. Juste at the other. And I just don't know how much they can get better even in a new scheme. But maybe what Gannon can do can hide him. He was known at times with the Eagles, and then with the Cardinals, they were trying a lot of different, coverage rotations, showing you one thing, doing something different, getting into the rotations late to confuse the quarterback. And maybe that can help his corners, and that it makes the quarterback hold the ball a little further or a little longer. And it allows those corners to hold up because a pass rush can get there quicker. We'll see. But I just I think Valentine can be better if he can just improve his tackling a little bit, because it was god awful last year. And I think that's his number one problem. But as the year got on and we saw him play more and more, he was also getting beat more. So I think he's an NFL corner. I think he deserves to be on an NFL roster. I just don't think he's a guy that you want starting for you every week. Like he's a nice player to have in, like, hey, you need him for a matchup this week, or you need him to fill in for an injured starter for 3 weeks. Like he can do that. But when he's in there every week, I think he kind of gets exposed a little bit. But if he's able to at least improve his tackling, that can help a lot.
Big deal.
Yeah, that can help a lot. And St. Juste was good with the Chargers last year, but it was a very small sample size. And before that, he wasn't good in Washington. So maybe the change in defense helped them. Doing similar things in Green Bay may help him as well. But I think we're counting on a small sample size for him, and we really don't know who he is as a player yet. And then Nixon, like, we've been through Nixon a lot. I think he kind of is what he is now, but maybe the scheme can kind of hide some of his weaknesses. Maybe they can manage him better and use him better. I don't know. But to me, the cornerback room is still the biggest concern until, and I think Cisse was a really good pick for them. And I'm optimistic about what he's going to be. It's just, he's a rookie, and you don't know when it's going to click for him and when he's going to be ready to play for you. So till he's ready and can contribute and be, a guy that they trust to be on the field for them. Yeah, I think to me, it's just like you're going to be holding your breath every time a quarterback drops back, because you don't know what those corners going to tackle. Are they going to take a penalty? Are they just going to get burned in coverage like we saw too often last year? Like, you don't know I just don't have the confidence there until Cisse can get up to speed and we can see his potential. But I think, the change, going back to get your point with Gannon, I'm not concerned about Gannon. It's that unknown of a new scheme, a new coordinator, and how they're going to do it. But I think going back to the Eagles, he has a history of getting results. And even with the Cardinals, the numbers weren't there, but the talent wasn't there. They were at least trying different things. It wasn't just like this is my scheme and we're going to run it all the time. Like they were mixing it up and trying to fit their personnel. And I think that's a good sign, because without Micah, you're going to have to try to figure out a pass rush and how to use your guys. And the other part of it, I kind of like their defensive staff better than I have in recent memory. I like bringing in Babbage. I like Bullocks, who was around for a while with the 49ers. Covington was a former coordinator too. Like I like the staff around him. So hopefully the development of players will be a boost for the defense, a boost that they need.
Yeah, and I think the best way to sum it up and look at it is, the floor versus the ceiling. I think you can confidently say that they raised their floor this offseason with the additions and the changes.
Yes.
I think what is still in question is, did they raise their ceiling? And that's, to me, where the development comes into question. The Gannon's system comes into question. If certain guys develop and Gannon's system works well, the ceiling is raised. If not, I still think your floor is higher than it was last season. So that, we spent a lot of time talking more about defense than offense, but this can apply to the offense too. The floor is pretty high for the offense, in my opinion, as long as everybody stays healthy. You got a lot of continuity there with guys that have been there now for a while, and the system's been there for a while. The offensive line is the biggest question, but again, I think that you raised the floor there, right? You bring in Burton, and you get a little bit more continuity, with guys at different positions, as far as Belton at right guard, Jordan Morgan at left tackle. Those things, to me, raise your floor. Their development will determine whether the ceiling is raised or not. But if they raise that ceiling, man, the offense is going to churn. It's going to be, it's going to be fun to watch. So, and this is all fun conversation, much more fun conversation than lists, in my opinion.
Yes.
So if you guys enjoyed this one, spike that like button for us. You're still hanging out. We got one comment I wanted to throw up there. Packers Clan 1771. Go Pack, go. That's what it all comes down to, baby. Love it. Glad you're hanging out with us. And you guys hit that subscribe button for us. If you're on YouTube, do it right now. It's right below the video. All you have to do is just click it. It's right there. Just a little click, just right there. If you're not on YouTube, jump over there, type in Packers Talk Network. Check out the other podcasts we got going. There's a couple of us, more than a couple. We got several great podcasters on the channel, putting out some great Packers content for you throughout every week. And then as we obviously roll into the season, there's going to be plenty to talk about and plenty of great voices to hear on the channel. So please jump over there and subscribe. Help us out. Help us find more Packers fans and help them find us. And of course, we will be back next week and 1 week closer to training camp. But as always, go Pack.